right, everybody. Hello. This is the Fakeologist Show. It is Wednesday, February the 15th, 2023. This is the Fakeologist Show. We do this show Sunday through Thursday around 8 p.m. Eastern, North America, Eastern. I guess the best way I should just say Toronto time, because there's so many people around the world, they don't have a clue where the Eastern time zone is. I better switch that because I get mixed up myself. So 8 p.m. Toronto time. So if you want to figure out what time that is in your part of the world, then just type in, I think I use datetime.com. As a matter of fact, when you go to my fakeologist.com/live section, there's somewhere on this page, I thought I had it here. Maybe not. Anyway, I think it's called Date Time. So you can punch in the time zone wherever you are and figure out what time the show starts. But it's 8 p.m. Toronto time. And tonight we are going to talk to someone I've never talked to before. And because I'm doing research into Agenda 21, Agenda 2030, I stumbled upon a particular website. I can't remember how I found it, as all research goes, and that's the beauty of the internet. You just click links, and next thing you know, you're at a page that's really interesting. Let me just bring up the FakeoTube chat right now. Oh, you're being sluggish tonight. Come on, man. If you can see my screen, I'm just waiting for it to show up, so I'm going to have to refresh this. Try again. Who knows what's going on? But FakeoTube chat is where we do our chats, and it doesn't look like it's going to come up tonight. Oh, my goodness. Maybe FakeoTube is a little slow tonight. Okay. Well, I'll just wait till that comes up. In the meantime, we are talking to Alan Mercer, who is the creator and owner of CanadianLiberty.com. And in my quest to find other Canadians to talk to, I thought this would be a good idea to have him on. So, Alan, welcome to the show.
Thanks very much, Tim. It's great to be here.
And one of the complaints I've made many times is that I don't think enough Canadians could give a damn about what's happening to Canada. And so when I look at my statistics, I see mostly Americans. They're number one by a long shot. And then it goes UK. And then it goes Australia. And then it goes Canada. So
yeah, I think Canadians are very quiet and very respectful and peaceful, but there's a lot more angry Canadians now than ever since it becomes so obvious. With the great reset and COVID, it's all just the most obvious Agenda 21 event ever.
That's right. Now, I don't know if you know who I am, but I've been doing broadcasting, chatting for about 11 years now. 11-year anniversary is coming up in April. And we have 674 shows, including this one, on the books. And we have a subset audio called Fakeologist Audio Chats, where we're up to around 1,200, usually ranging from 1 to 3 hours, where people that are just like-minded come and chat, and they broadcast live on my little IceCast setup, and it is recorded. So we've been talking about media fakery and just the power structure for a long time. Mainly we're just interested in psyops, and I put this website together just to bring all the researchers from around the world that I keep stumbling upon to try and assemble a giant puzzle by just finding disparate pieces and putting them together. And so I don't think you will have seen anything like this website where I talk about 9/11, JFK, all the integrated capstone events going on in the U.S., Agenda 21, the Illuminati. I'm not really into some of the things I can't prove, but that's what I talk about. So now, because we are seeing the implementation of Agenda 21, at least in Canada, because I can't tell what's going on everywhere else. Now we're into that phase. So I've sort of emphasized Agenda 21 and Agenda 2030 discussion as we transition away from the nonstop virus vaccine nonsense that goes on or has gone on for 3 years. So
Yes,
that's
sure.
yeah. So I just wanted to give you a little background on where I am, and I'm just curious. How long have you been researching any of the things I've discussed, and if any of the things I just mentioned are any of those in your area of interest? Before we go and look at your website.
Yes, I think all of those, or most of those things, are in my areas of interest. I was interested in 9/11. I didn't get too deeply into it,
Mm-hmm.
but I got somewhat into it. And Agenda 21, I I discovered that because I was involved with the Libertarian Party. Actually, I was helping to organize the Libertarian Party provincially and federally, and that's when I was on the John Oakley show a couple of times. Once
Oh,
was for a
really?
press release. Yes, yeah, back in the day. So that was the early 2000s, 2004, 2008, and that there was a whole lot of election campaigns I was involved in, and provincially there was one occasion where there's a press release on smart growth. It was called, in Ontario, the policy is called Places to Grow,
Mm-hmm.
and it was basically all these foundations I discovered by researching the lobby group. It was called Nature Ontario or something like that. It was on the official website for the Ontario lobbyists. It was actually a World Wildlife Fund
Right.
promoting the legislation. So all the smart growth stuff, the Greenbelt Act, and all that stuff, it was um, being lobbied by the World Wildlife Fund. Basically, that was my conclusion to that. And eventually, I learned about Agenda 21. Wasn't at that point, and in 2012, I helped the Federal Libertarian Party create a press release on the update at that time in 2012. Um, so that's on my website also.
It's funny you bring up World Wildlife Fund because it reminds me just out of the back of my mind, there was a guy, an executive from the World Wildlife Fund that was murdered in Toronto in 2011. And I don't know if you remember that story. And I was just
No,
curious. He was killed in a parking garage near to where I used to make deliveries. I'm in the delivery
wow,
business. And I'll bring it up on the screen here. His name was Glenn Davis. And I don't know what exactly happened, but I'm just looking here now. But he was a vice president, or he was in the World Wildlife Fund. So I was just wondering if that maybe had anything to do with that, or maybe it was just a personal thing. But it was quite strange, quite a
that
strange
is
story.
interesting. I didn't know about that.
Right.
They're involved in grabbing land in the third world.
Mm-hmm. Is that right? Okay.
Yes, I have some posts on that topic. They're more recent.
So you were on with John Oakley. I always thought when I used to listen to radio before the internet became a big thing, I always thought he was a pretty good talk show host in Toronto.
Yeah, yeah, it's very popular,
But
and it was a topic that was a topic of organ donation. On one occasion, there was another topic also about free speech, but that topic of organ donation was to do with Peter Kormos, the NDP, promoting that you'd have to opt in or opt out. I think it was opt out or something like that.
I think you had
Back
to
in those
opt
days.
out. I think there was
Yeah.
it was I think that was back in the days of negative optioning where you
Hmm.
were assumed to be in unless you opted out. So uh
Yeah.
that's a
Yep.
way to force people to actually come to the table. Otherwise the government or the agency would come after them. I think
Yeah. And I tried.
Rogers Cable had that negative. If you didn't say you didn't want the service, you were assumed to want it and get charged for it.
Yeah. And just the more I learned about things, so I try to deal with difficult topics on my website, and but the more I learned about things, the more I couldn't fit into the libertarian sort of mold. It's like a mold. It's kind of artificial. Ideologies are like a mold. They want you to fit into,
Mhm.
and I tried to fit into it for a while, but eventually I have to break out of it. that's how it was. I just feel there's a natural sense of right and wrong and how things should be, and I followed that instead.
Right.
So there are a lot of things they had right, but I didn't see the organ issue clearly. I think I see it more clearly now. I understand it more broader way, but it's such a deep topic as well. I tried to tackle that in 2020. As I had some posts on that. I studied it a little bit during COVID.
Well, let's go to big picture now. So, how would you call yourself a truther? Looking into truth, or
yeah?
Okay. How long have you been looking into these kind of topics? Because I think you're about the same age I am, in your 50s, or maybe.
Yeah. I got into. I started out with libertarian websites. At first started, and I was sort of like pro-Bush, pro-Mulroney, and all that. And
yeah, me too.
I got more. And more I got concerned about. After 9/11, I got more and more concerned. I wasn't suspicious at first, but I got more and more concerned about the foreign policy behavior of the United States. I was opposed to it, and I'd follow websites like antiwar.com, and they were this type of conservative libertarian type, and they were very interesting to me, and I got into that. But it was, polemical, and you learn it's more about controversy, debates and taking sides, even within that sort of narrow, ideological disputes between libertarians, but it eventually it wasn't happy with that either, and I got more into the truth side, trying to figure out what was really going on. They had some of that, but didn't go far enough. So I was listening to different. I listened to Alex Jones, but I think the person who really helped me was Alan Watt.
Ah, good. Yeah, Alan Watt.
Yeah,
we're big fans.
And he lived in Canada. He died recently in 2021.
Yeah, we interviewed his widow. And the young man who's working with her to keep the website going.
Great. I'll have to listen to that, because I didn't know about that. That's great.
Yeah, that'll be in our audio. You can either search FacoTube, because all these shows are video as well. So you can just go to facotube.com. That's my video platform, and just search Alan Watt. Alan Watt. I think it's one L as well. And that should come up. Actually, I put a couple videos that I like of his up here, and here it is right here. Episode 633. How appropriate, 33 for Alan Watt and his title. So there you go. So a little bit of Alan Watt on here. You can easily find stuff. You'll find the searches pretty darn fast here on FacoTube. Yeah, and I cross-posted a tribute show that Melissa did on Alan Watt. I thought it was really good, and we got 5,000 views on that right there. And just let me just. Oh, I didn't put the origin of that, but that's probably more views than they got on YouTube. So
I wasn't aware of these. This is great. I'm glad to see this. I didn't know you had an interview like that. That's great.
Oh yeah. Well, Alan Watt, I wasn't listening to him back in the day, but when I started researching, a couple people referred me to his broadcast. I definitely started listening, and I'll make that show note number 1 tonight. I do, as I talk about things, I make show notes, and this is FAK 674, so that'll be show note number 1 for anyone who's following along and wants to find my FacoTube interview. It was interesting. It was different. It was an interesting discussion that we had. Okay, so anyway, so you're listening to Alan Watt, Alex Jones.
Yeah, and he opened. Alan Watt was the guy who opened my mind, because I could see the bigger picture. I could understand the Fabians, chemtrails. I could see them. It was just back in 2008, really, for me. Chemtrails, what else? Vaccines, fluoride. I was already reading about fluoride. All these topics. 9/11. He didn't get into details about 9/11, but other people did, and I gradually learn more and more. Even later on, I was learning for years. I was kept learning for years. I was listening to Clint Richardson's show. That's what I heard. Lark.
Yeah.
Um, I was
I'm going to
listening
get
to,
Clint on as well.
mhm, mhm. And I was listening to Hoaxbusters Call. That's where I heard about you the first time. I remember they were
Oh,
influenced by
right.
you.
Did you ever call in?
No, I just listened. No, I didn't. No.
Yeah, Chris was great.
Yeah, they were very interesting, and they were influenced by you. Obviously, I could tell they were talking about your show.
Well, actually, I was influenced by them more. So yeah, I
Okay.
had Chris on a few times, and I listened to all his stuff as well, for sure.
Mhm.
I tried to help him out with some technical issues, but I don't think he had any money. So when you don't have any money, it's hard to keep your sites going. I don't even think he renewed some of his domains on time, and he lost one of them, which was crazy. So he was sort of a semi-technical person, and you need to be. I'm quite technical, even though my skills are limited, and I run up against roadblocks all the time with my skill. But I try and keep a couple websites going, including FacoTube, and it takes a lot of effort and stress and strain. But yeah, so Chris was good. I talked to him right up towards the end, which is sad demise.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, that was sad. I heard about that. Yeah, it's very sad.
So you're right up to date with pretty much all the things that I like to talk about then, which is good.
I don't know if I'm right up to date or not. I just kept trying to catch up with what you have on your site. I'm not familiar. I wasn't familiar with it.
Okay. Well, that's why I do these shows, cross promotion. So if you could promote my site on your platform as well, I'm sure we could all use a little boost, because the only way people find out about my site is through other people promoting it, because Google doesn't really help. And
Certainly, yes, for sure, I'll do that.
I'm looking here at the different posts you have on CanadianLiberty.com on Alan Watt. And yeah, that was March 2021, coming up to 2 years ago. Crazy.
The one, yes, the one with all the comments is the one, the heavyweight, alternative media heavyweight. Has a lot
Okay.
of comments and controversy.
Oh, 57 replies. Okay, yeah, there I see it. All right, I'll put a link to that. And what was the controversy?
Just that
I don't
people
have to.
suspected all sorts of things.
Oh, that it may have been fake.
Yeah, all this stuff, and but others are just leaving their tributes.
Well, we study media fakery, so the first thing we're always suspicious on my site of people, including Chris of Hoaxbusters. So it
Mhm.
seems unlikely, but it's always a little bit in the back of everyone's mind that something nefarious could be going on.
I was just I don't know what happened. Still, I'm looking forward to listening to the interview.
Yeah, we really didn't get into
Mhm.
that kind of thing in the interview, but yeah, it
Okay.
might be worth your while. We may have said something interesting, but yeah, he definitely would read and discuss, even though his Scottish brogue was a little hard to get through. I find I always have subtitles when I watch some UK movies, because I can't keep track what they're saying when they slur everything together. But overall, it was interesting. It's dry. It's dry material when he's reading Club of Rome stuff.
Yeah, yeah, that's what he did. Like he slogged through all the heavy articles and did all that research, which we made use of for
Hmm.
sure. And I think he influenced a lot of alternative media people. So he opened the doors. He opened people's minds. I think.
But it does suck that all these that were talking about what was going to happen disappeared just when this whole thing really got going. Like Chris and Alan, it's just annoying. Mullis, that kind of all these leading characters that we're talking about this kind of thing are now no longer here to comment right on
I think
what we're talking about today.
I think he was probably, I think some of it would have been the stress of all the events in 2020. I think it was overwhelming. For me, I
Yep.
thought it was amazing. It's very intense when it started.
But for these guys, they knew it was coming. So it's not, to me, it's not as big a deal. Like for me, and I really maybe hadn't been researching the whole big picture as long as these guys. Um, I was ready for this. I said hoax the minute it started because I'd been looking into health, vaccines, all the things that, and I thought what Alan was saying was far fetched. I thought, how could they do this? I just don't see it happening. So, but the point is that if you are aware that it was going to happen, is it such a surprise when it actually does?
It's not about, I don't think it's a surprise. It's just the overwhelming nature of what you realize it is. It's just, you realize this is like a war. They've turned against us, all of us. They've turned against the people. They're lying and corrupt. You can tell. It was just so obvious to a lot of us whose eyes had been opened. And I think Alan Watt was trying to keep up with it. He was keeping up with that news. Same, every week he'd have a show. He'd keep up with the COVID stuff. I imagine he was overwhelmed. I don't know. He was probably sick with something. I don't know. I think he was probably about 70. You would know from the interview. I don't know, but I think he was probably in the 70s. I was guessing.
Yeah, somebody put an RIP that he was born in 65. That seems like the wrong
No,
year.
that's a different Alan Watt.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I checked that out. He got the wrong one.
That was Alan Watts.
No, that's it's just someone I never heard of. Lived in Canada. His name was Alan Watt from Scotland.
Okay.
And he's a bit of a celebrity, I guess. But I tried to put the info in there. It's not. I told him it's not our Alan.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, I think Alan Watt was a little older. Okay.
Yeah.
What's your take on what's going on now? Let's start. What do you think is happening in Canada in particular, but in the world in general?
Well, somehow they've got, through these international agreements, they've formalized it over the years and years and years, many, many, many international agreements, starting with the Brundtland Commission. Well, not even starting with the Brundtland Commission, but going back before that, but including Aldous Huxley's Brave New World Revisited. And he was a brother of Julian Huxley, who developed the concept of transhumanism. And he was the founder of UNESCO.
Yeah.
Right. So back then, they had the agenda back then, the World Wildlife Fund. They had Bilderberg Group, had all that. And they were developing this plan basically around, population, controlling the population and controlling people. And they had it from the days of H.G. Wells and Aldous Huxley when he wrote his novel, The Brave New World, in the 30s. And I believe Brave New World parallels a lot of what's happening now in Agenda 21. And what happened in Canada was a combination, I think, of, it is definitely corruption, and it's a secret society of sorts, and it's blackmail, I think. And all combined, almost all of these politicians were captured, and they're unified in some way. They don't go against it. They're all locked in, and they're starting in 2020. They're doing criminal things, committing fraud, breaking all sorts of laws, breaking the charter, and they were, like with the death protocols, the COVID protocols. Those are euthanasia, special euthanasia protocols, not even the ones that were just created a few years ago, before in 2017 or so. But these were special COVID protocols. You can call them euthanasia protocols, or health rationing, or isolation, and not treating people and suppressing treatments. And they killed people with those, and in some areas worse than others. So it was bad enough in Ontario and Quebec. And basically the elderly were kept out of hospitals. And it was documented by the mainstream media even. They even documented it. So they were written. The Ontario protocol was published in the Toronto Star. Was done openly. The Canadian Medical Association had a protocol. I still have a web archive link to it. The just not to treat elderly people if you don't have to. You know, that's basically you treat the younger people first, and it's all this just excuse making, pretending that there's these huge numbers of there's going to be these huge numbers of sick people, and there weren't. There were lots of empty hospital rooms. That was everybody knew it. It was covered by CTV News. Empty hospital rooms in Ontario. They emptied out the hospitals. They canceled surgeries. Nurses were sent home. All this stuff was happening all over Canada. So that's part of the fraud, just to give the impression of this pandemic. And all I'm saying is that there's a huge topic. They're trying to force the vaccines. Bill Gates was already talking about that, saying the whole world is going to be vaccinated. And of course, it leads to digital ID and digital currency and all of that stuff. And a controlled world like Brave New World.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, definitely. I'm just before we talk about anything like injections, we're going to have to turn off the YouTube stream now. So all you guys on YouTube, this is your introduction to the video, and you have to switch over to FacoTube now. FacoTube.com. That's where you can participate in the chat. All your chats will turn into comments on the video on FacoTube. So I invite all you people over on YouTube to come on over to FacoTube.com, and you have to register on FacoTube if you want to chat. Otherwise, you can just view anonymously. It's fine. So thank you for the YouTube viewers, and now I'm going to shut off YouTube. All right.